Hey everyone, ready to dive deep?
Always ready.
Today we're tackling language, but not just any language. We're going all Inception on this.
Exception.
Yeah, like going deep into how our brains actually process it, turning sounds into meaning, all that jazz.
The cognitive machinery behind the magic. I like it.
Right. And our guide for this wild ride,
Hit me with it.
a chapter straight out of cognitive psych textbook land. It's all about, well, the basics of language and speech processing.
This is a good foundation. Back to basics.
Exactly. So buckle up. We're about to unlock the secrets of how we humans.
Ended up with the superpower, unlike any other species, language.
Boom.
You.
Got it. And that actually brings up a great starting point. What makes human language so unique?
Right. Could we ever actually chat with animals like Dr. Dolittle?
Okay, so the textbook dives into these design features. It's like a checklist of what makes human language special.
Special indeed. Like, take our words, for example. Think of them as little containers of meaning, packed with thoughts, ideas, even emotions. Oh, I like that. Containers of meaning. And we don't just talk about what's right here, right now. Past, future, even make-believe stuff.
Exactly. That's something that seems to set us apart. Animals, they're mostly communicating about the here and now.
Right, like a warning call for a predator, but can they reminisce about yesterday's close call? Not so much.
Nope, no planning that next hunt either.
But wait, what about those super cool examples of animal communication? Honeybee dance? Anyone?
Ah, yes, the waggle dance.
No.
Telling their buddies where the nectar's at. And vervet monkeys. Different alarm calls for different predators.
Super impressive systems, right?
Whoa, absolutely. But they're kind of like a restaurant with only a fixed menu.
Yeah.
You can only order what they've got.
I see.
Whereas human language,
It's like having the whole kitchen. You can cook up anything you could imagine. Infinite possibilities.
bingo. And that brings us to those animal language projects, remember?
Yeah.
Sarah the chimp, Alex the parrot.
Oh, yeah, and Rico the border collie learning all those labels for objects.
Made everyone wonder, are they really getting language like we do? Or is it something else?
Right. Like Kanzi the bonobo, he could combine symbols in new ways, even understood spoken instructions.
Was he using grammar? That language? Big questions.
And some linguists say the real key, the thing that sets us apart, is recursion.
Ah, yes, recursion. You know that classic line? To understand recursion, you must first understand recursion.
Whoa, brain twister.
It is. Sentences within sentences. Ideas nested within ideas. It's like super deep, complex.
Mind-blowing.
But some researchers say, hold on, maybe there's more to the story.
Oh.
Yeah, and get this. Some studies suggest starlings might even show recursive patterns.
Whoa, starlings, like the birds.
The very same. Seems there's always more to uncover. But for now, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay, I'm game. Where are we headed?
Well, we've talked big picture stuff. But how about we zoom in on the nitty-gritty of speech processing?
The nitty-gritty, huh?
Yeah, what's happening inside our brains when we hear someone talking and actually make sense of it?
Okay, sign me up for that.
It's like your brain's this super sophisticated sound decoder. First, your ears capture those sound waves. Then
Then the brain kicks into gear, analyzing, matching sounds to words.
you got it. But here's the thing. Speech is rarely perfect. People talk fast, they mumble.
Accents galore.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does our brain deal with all that messy input?
Good question.
Well, it's this awesome combo of bottom-up and top-down processing.
Okay, break it down for me.
Bottom-up is like analyzing the raw ingredients, the sound waves hitting your eardrums. Top-down is where it gets really cool.
Cool how?
That's where your brain uses context, your knowledge of the world to fill in the gaps, make educated guesses.
It's like having a detective in your brain, piecing together all these clues.
Exactly. Now, to really understand this process, we got to talk about the building blocks of speech.
Okay, I'm ready. Give me the building blocks.
So think about it. You say boat, I say boat, but the O sound might be slightly different.
Right.
Those tiny variations, those are like the atoms of speech.
But then there are bigger sound differences. Like B versus P changes the whole meaning.
Exactly. Big versus pig, totally different. And where do all these sounds come from?
Good question.
Your vocal tract, tongue, teeth, vocal cords all working together to make those sounds.
Like a built-in sound machine. Way cooler, though.
Way cooler. But then there's the twist. What happens when we speak quickly?
Sounds blend together, right?
Exactly. That's where categorical perception comes in. Your brain is actually pretty forgiving.
Forgiving how?
It lumps similar sounds together, ignores the tiny differences.
So that's how we can understand someone even if they have a strong accent.
You got it. It's like, at first, it's tough to understand, but then your brain adjusts and
They
start to...
kick out those important sound categories.
Precisely. And get this, there's something called the phonemic restoration effect.
Okay, that sounds intense. What is that?
So researchers played sentences, but they replaced a sound with a cough. Like, it was found that the eel was on the...
And people could still understand.
They didn't even notice the missing sound. Their brains filled it in based on the rest of the sentence.
Wow, that's crazy. So our brains are like auto-correct for language.
Something like that. It's amazing how much our brains do behind the scenes without us even realizing it.
It really is. So we've explored how our brains decode those basic sounds.
We have.
But what about the next level up? How do they become meaningful words?
Ah, excellent question. That's where we move from sound to meaning, the world of morphology.
Morphology. Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Basically, it's studying how we build words from smaller units of meaning called morphemes.
Morphemes. So, like, what's a morpheme?
Think of the word tree. One morpheme, a whole word. Add iteroi.
You get treed. Changes the whole thing.
Exactly. Itera, that's a bound morpheme. Can't stand alone, but it changes the meaning.
Got it. So how do we learn all this morpheme stuff, like past tense verbs? Is it rules? Do we just memorize?
Ah, the past tense debate. And you know how kids say funny things like, I go to the park?
Yeah, cute, but grammatically not quite there.
Right. But those errors, they actually tell us something about how our brains learn.
So even those adorable mistakes are giving us insights.
Absolutely. Seems like there might be two systems. Rules for regular verbs.
And memory for those tricky, irregular ones.
Got it. Our brains are always finding the most efficient way to handle language.
Always optimizing. But how about perceiving spoken words? Is there like a model for that?
There is. The cohort model.
Mm.
Imagine hearing the first sound of a word.
Okay.
Your brain activates a bunch of potential matches, like a mental dictionary search.
Ah, so as you hear more sounds,
The possibilities narrow down till you hit the right word.
it's like a super fast mental game of guess the word.
Exactly. And think about it. You recognize house way faster than hippopotamus.
True. It's like our brains have a shortcut for those everyday words.
They do. But then there are words with multiple meanings, like bank. What happens then?
Good point. Does our brain activate every meaning at once?
Well, research suggests
It's me, that both meanings get activated initially.
you're good at this. But the context helps us quickly pick the right one. Amazing, right?
Seriously. Our brains are juggling so much without us even knowing.
They really are. Now, remember our chat about word boundaries? It can be tough to tell where one word ends and another begins.
Especially in a new language or when someone's talking a mile a minute, it's like trying to read a sentence with no spaces.
Right. And that brings us to those funny mondegreens.
Misheard lyrics. Love those.
Classics. Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Not quite Jimi Hendrix, but hilarious. It shows how our brains use both sounds and our knowledge to understand.
Right. When the sound's ambiguous, our brain makes a guess. Sometimes those guesses are just funny.
Makes you appreciate how creative and adaptable our brains are.
Absolutely.
We've covered so much already. Human language's special features, sound perception, word recognition.
It's mind-blowing how much is happening every time we listen to someone speak.
It really is.
Welcome back to our language deep dive. Last time, we tackled sounds and words, how we perceive them, all that.
Right, the building blocks.
Exactly. Now, get ready to level up, because we're going to the penthouse suite of language. Sentences and meaning.
Ooh, penthouse suite. Fancy grammar rules. Deciphering secret codes of meaning.
You got it. Syntax, the rules of sentence structure,
Yeah.
and semantics, the meaning of words.
Like building a house, right. Syntax is the framework, the grammar. Semantics, all the furniture, decorations, the stuff that makes it a home.
Perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a poorly built house can collapse.
A bad sentence just doesn't work. Leaves you confused.
Exactly. Okay, ready for an example?
Hit me with it.
The crowd booed the referee after his terrible call.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
Now try this. The terrible call booed the crowd after the referee.
Whoa, that's just wrong.
Right. The meaning's gone because the structure, the syntax is all messed up.
It's like the words are all there, but the furniture's in the wrong places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what's going on in our brains when we try to understand these sentences?
Yeah, what's happening up there?
Different parts of our brain handle syntax and semantics. We know this from studying people with language impairments caused by brain damage.
Oh, wow. So, like, what happens when those brain areas are damaged?
Well, there's something called Broca's aphasia. People struggle with grammar, short, choppy sentences. but they understand the words.
So it's like their syntax center is offline.
Exactly. But their semantic center is still working.
They get the gist, but can't put the pieces together grammatically.
Right. Then there's Wernicke's aphasia. Fluent speech, but it often doesn't make sense. Made-up words, jumbled sentences.
Semantic center scrambled.
You got it. Syntax is fine, but meaning's lost.
Amazing, huh?
Different brain areas for different language jobs.
It really is. Makes you wonder, how do we even acquire language in the first place? Born with it or learned?
The classic nature versus nurture debate, but for language.
Exactly. What's the textbook say?
Well, there's this big theory, universal grammar, from linguist Noam Chomsky. He said we're born with an innate ability for language structure.
Like a language blueprint in our brains.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And one argument is the poverty of the stimulus. Kids learn language so fast, even with imperfect input.
That's true. No one's giving grammar lessons to babies.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't get a ton of feedback when they make mistakes. Yet they learn so quickly.
Makes you think there's something innate going on.
There's another side to this, though.
Oh.
The constraint-based approach. It emphasizes learning through patterns, probabilities.
So babies are like tiny statisticians analyzing all the language they hear.
Exactly. Figuring out the rules based on those patterns. The textbook has some great examples. The plane left for the reporter was missing.
Wait, the plane?
Right. It's harder to understand because it breaks our expectations. We use our knowledge of the world, how language usually works.
So it's not just innate wiring, it's being super perceptive to how language is used around us.
You got it. Both nature and nurture at play. We're born ready, but experiences shape us.
A beautiful dance between our brains and the world.
But wait, there's another layer to this language onion, right?
There is. Pragmatics. The social side of language. Going beyond literal meaning.
Pragmatics, reading between the lines, understanding humor, sarcasm, the good stuff.
Exactly. Think about it. There are these unwritten rules we follow in conversation.
Be informative, truthful, all that.
Right. But we don't always follow those rules. Sometimes we're vague on purpose, or we change how we talk, depending on who we're with.
Like, you wouldn't talk to your boss the same way you talk to your best friend.
Exactly. Adjusting our language to fit the social context.
It's like the social game we're all playing, using language as our tool.
Well said. And then there's the whole debate about gender differences in conversation. Are women really more talkative, more polite?
Ooh, good question. What's the verdict?
Well, the textbook challenges some of those stereotypes. Research shows men and women use about the same number of words each day. So it's not really about men being from Mars, women from Venus.
More like we're all from Earth trying to communicate.
I like that.
So we've climbed the language mountain, from sounds to sentences to this complex social world. Now, get ready for a backstage pass.
Backstage pass.
To language production. How we go from thoughts to spoken words.
I'm definitely ready for that. Back again for more language adventures. We've explored how we understand what we hear, make sense of words and sentences, all that good stuff.
Right, the whole receiving end of language.
But now, total mind flip time.
Oh.
Intrigued. We're diving into language production, how our brains go from I have a thought to I'm saying words out loud.
The flip side, from listener to speaker.
Exactly. It's kind of like magic, isn't it? Happens all the time, but we rarely stop to think about it.
True that. So how does this magic actually work?
Well, the textbook lays it out in 4 key stages: conceptualizing, planning, articulating, and self-monitoring.
Like a mental assembly line, from raw ideas to fluent speech.
That's a great way to put it. So let's walk that line. First stop, conceptualization.
The birth of an idea. That moment you decide, hey, I want to communicate something.
It all starts with that little spark.
Right, that intention to share something. It's a bit mysterious, this pre-linguistic thought realm.
But it's the foundation, right?
Absolutely. Then comes planning. This is where we organize those thoughts, choosing the right words, grammar, the whole shebang.
Creating a blueprint for the sentence.
Exactly. Then we move to articulation, the physical part. Vocal cords buzzing, tongue doing its thing, lip shaping sounds.
It's like having a built-in 3D printer for language.
Love that analogy. But we're not done yet. Last stop, self-monitoring, our inner editor.
Making sure what we're saying actually matches what we meant to say.
Right. Catching errors, correcting on the fly. We do this constantly without even realizing it.
It's like quality control for our speech. Amazing.
It is. And, one way researchers have learned about all this planning and articulating, by studying those little slip-ups we all make. Speech errors.
Yes. Tongue twisters, swap sounds, words getting jumbled. Happens to the best of us.
It does. But as embarrassing as they can be, those errors are super valuable for understanding language production.
So our mistakes are actually teaching us something.
Absolutely. The textbook even categorizes them. Shifts, exchanges, anticipations, perseverations, blends.
Okay, break those down for me.
A shift is when you move a sound, like saying he was dunking public instead of drunk in public.
I've totally done that.
We all have. An exchange is swapping sounds. Do you want water in your lemon instead of lemon in your water?
Classic, especially when I'm tired or talking too fast.
Right. And these errors can happen at different levels. Sounds, morphemes, even whole words. But here's the interesting thing.
What's that?
They often follow certain rules, like our brains are still trying to stick to some linguistic principles even when we mess up.
Like there's a grammar police officer in our heads even when things go off the rails.
Love it. One theory is that we plan language step by step. What we want to say, the main words, grammar, then those little connecting words.
Building a sentence brick by brick.
Exactly. But other researchers think it's more of a team effort, different brain areas working on different aspects at the same time.
So much debate about stuff we're not even aware of. But speaking of unaware, what about those Freudian slips?
Ah, yes. The ones that supposedly reveal our hidden desires.
So juicy.
There was this experiment where they induced anxiety in people.
Wait, they intentionally made people anxious.
For science. Some were expecting electric shocks, others a meeting with an attractive researcher.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
The shock group made more shock-related errors, like damn shock instead of shamdock.
No way.
And the attraction group, you guessed it, more sex-related slopes.
So does this mean Freud was right? Our unconscious is driving our language.
It's definitely interesting evidence. Suggests our thoughts and feelings can influence our speech, even when we're not aware of it.
It's a good reminder that language isn't just rules and structures. It's tied to our inner world.
Absolutely. Now, let's circle back to self-monitoring, that last stage. How do we catch errors before they slip out? Or correct ourselves mid-sentence?
The textbook mentions the perceptual loop theory, like we're listening to ourselves as we speak.
Exactly. Comparing what we hear to what we intended to say.
An internal feedback loop. And research suggests it focuses on sound more than meaning.
Right. So we're more likely to catch a mispronounced word than a grammar flub. It's like our brain saying, hold up, that didn't sound right.
Makes sense. Our brains are efficient like that.
Amazingly so. We're always monitoring, adjusting, fine-tuning, all without conscious effort.
We've really explored the whole language landscape, haven't we?
We have. From those basic sounds to social nuances to the inner workings of how we produce speech.
It's really made me appreciate the power and complexity of our minds, this whole symphony of language we navigate every day.
And in ways no other species can. We decode meaning, encode our thoughts, connect with each other. Truly remarkable.
It's easy to take language for granted, but this deep dive has been eye-opening.
The hidden magic, the neural processes, cognitive mechanisms, social cues. Human language is a phenomenon.
So next time you speak, take a moment to appreciate that symphony happening in your head. It's incredible.
Well said. We shape the world with our words. That's a powerful thing.
And that's a wrap on our language deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never lose that wonder for the gift of communication.